Hey folks, Sega Sonic fan here, and today I want to show off my latest creation here. Hack really, it's a bunch of parts hacked together. This is a portable benchtop power supply, and it's also a wall benchtop power supply. It accepts both AC and DC signals to power on, and it's pretty sweet. I've really needed a adjustable voltage output supply for quite some time. Great for testing and troubleshooting and all kinds of stuff. I've been using this piece of crap for way too long. It's actually a adjustable voltage power supply that is used for tattoo guns. My friend who's a tattoo artist gave me this years and years ago. And, maybe I shouldn't complain so much. I mean, it does work, as you can see, but it's very low output. I don't even think it can do an amp, especially not at the higher voltages. And, it's not super accurate, and it's also just big and heavy. It's a linear power supply, big-ass transformer in there. So, I wanted to build something that was more legit, which is this guy right here. Pretty stoked actually, and I built this not spending a lot of time. I think I spent maybe 10 hours putting it all together total. And the cool thing is, I basically spent no money doing it. It's all built from salvaged parts. I maybe spent, if you don't count the watt meter, which I am using still as an external watt meter, spent maybe $10 on the thing grand total, which has been really, really awesome. And if you buy the parts yourself, maybe it sets you back $40 or something. Shouldn't be anything, huge though. And it's pretty great. So let me first go over the inspiration for this project. And there are two big things that inspired it. Mainly, it is this digital DIY Kingston power supply hack page. Let's see if you can see it right there. And this is digitaldiy.io is the host address. And this is a great article that my friend sent me, written by John Chandler in April 2012. And what it does is it shows a Kingston power supply, which is this, he has a 70 watt one here, that it's just a basic universal laptop power supply. You're thinking, so what, right? Like Tenergy makes a ton of these. Here's mine. I have the 120 watt version. So what, right? Well, actually, this one is pretty sweet because the interchangeable tips, if you're familiar with these power supplies, you know that they have interchangeable tips for different laptop models. Those have resistors in them, which change the output voltage and the output current. So, because you can adjust both current and voltage, it makes this pretty ideal for a hack, and especially a benchtop power supply. Here he is showing the two pots right there, nice linear pots, and he gives a full pin out and everything. It's a really nice article. So, I saw that and was like, okay, that seems really cool. The other kind of amazing thing about this very small 120 watt power supply is it also accepts DC. It accepts 12 volts as well. So utilizing that and the AC input, I actually now have an AC and DC power supply right here, which is pretty sweet. So let's take a look inside. Let's take a look inside the outside and see what I did actually. This is actually one of my really rushed jobs. I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time making it super pretty. So I'm a little embarrassed to show this off, especially this part in the back. This is pretty janky, but it gets the job done, and I'm not going to sell this or anything, so it's just for me, and I don't really care. Just want to get it done. It's been on the back burner for a long time. So here's your AC input. There's a fuse right there. That's pretty basic. Let's go ahead and plug it in. And in the front here, you'll see I got quite a few things going on. So the other inspiration for this was this watt meter. And this thing's really cool. They sell these out of China now. And it's a, I'll show you more when I turn it on and open it up. But it's a current and voltage readout. watt meter that is purely digital and also operates over Wi-Fi. What? Yeah, it's pretty cool, and they're about 25 bucks. So I can still use this as a standalone portable watt meter as well, which is pretty cool. So let's take a look at what's going on under the hood here. And again, this is kind of a rush job, so it's not my finest work or anything like that, but it gets the job done. And here in the bottom, obviously I took the top off the power supply, and I used these kind of sticky adhesive pads, double-sided adhesive padding for mounting stuff in here, as well as hot glue. And so there's 2 adhesive pads in the bottom of this, and I'm actually going to use some thermal pads and put a big chunky heat sink on this later. This is aluminum. This is not solderable. You can't really solder this kind of lightweight aluminum stuff. So I'm going to get some of those adhesive thermal pads and put a decent copper heat sink on that. Though it's supposed to handle 120 watts just like that. Just kind of hard to believe, but I mean maybe. I mean that's what it says. And it's a pretty sweet design. It does get warm without a load applied, which is kind of weird. But if you look inside here up close, you'll see that there is this appears to be some kind of thermal fuse. Is what my guess. This is obviously a fuse, those Dale fuses. It might be a resettable, actually. It's probably a resettable PTC or an NTC. Here is your regular fast blow fuse. That's for the 12-volt socket. You have some nice big chunky power capacitors here on the inputs and outputs. They're connected in parallel in the outputs, obviously, to reduce size. And you know, the switching circuitry's all over here. It's not too shabby. And it's overall seems to be a pretty decent design. And so this right here is the watt meter relay. This is the big ass relay, and this is the sort of CPU components inside here. I could have taken it out of the case, but I figured why. I mean, it works well enough, and I have plenty of room with this big enclosure that I found. This is a power supply that I found, 12 volts. It's wired directly to the AC, obviously. I just cut off the pins here. And it's a 1 amp 12 volt power supply from a Netgear router. Those are all over the place. You can find them all kinds of e-waste. And that's necessary because this relay and the CPU here requires 12 volts and to pass through the voltage and measure the current as well. And what else? Found a power supply here, illuminated power supply. Nice and nice to have in the front and let you know that your AC power is working simultaneously. And then this is the watt meter display. This is connected through a USB cable. This is the design of it. So actually just glued a USB cable in here, and I have it wiring directly so it doesn't use the Wi-Fi. And then you have your 12 volt signal coming in through the side right here if you want to power it off 12 volts. Big fat PTC resettable fuse there. There's 2 others over here. A couple diodes for reverse polarity protection. There's 2 pots, one for current, one for voltage. They're linear controlled pots. They're one of the only thing I actually bought for this. I think I spent $3 on them through DigiKey. And just like the schematic shows on the site, they're wired up. There's the pins right there that go to your pots and your output. And then I also added this very large DPDT. It's actually a 3-state, but I'm not using the 3rd channel. But this very large DPDT, because I wanted to not just have the watt meter built in and only used for this power supply, I wanted to be able to hook up an external voltage to then have it run through the watt meter to the output, so I could actually use it as a standalone watt meter as well. So let's go up, power it up, see what it looks like. And there it is with the display. The camera doesn't pick up quite how clear that display is. It's pretty nice and clear though. And illuminated power switch. This is the output voltage. I painted this red, obviously, for polarity. Here's your current, which shuts it off if I go no current at all. Seems to work quite well. And then here's your voltage adjustment. And then here's the switch. If I switch this, then this is the input now instead of the internal power supply. So I can hook up an external load or external input there, input voltage, and have a load going out here, and this will read out the wattage of it, which is really handy for prototyping and such. What else? The accuracy is, it's so-so. This isn't going to beat, a $300, really quality HP bench supply. And if I measure it with my fluke here, but it's good enough for me. And it's I'd say at worst it's about 60 millivolts off at the very, very worst, at the very high voltages. So right now I'm getting 10.69 on my fluke, keeping in mind these are cheap probes here. 10.69 on my fluke, and through the watt meter I'm getting 10.66. So that's a little bit off, not a biggie for me. However, this standalone, $2 voltmeter says 10.8, and that's obviously a little bit worse. If I take it all the way up to 20, what this says is 25.3 volts. The watt meter says 24.75. Obviously, that's a pretty big difference. And if I measure on my fluke, I get 24.81. So that's the 60 millivolt difference on the extreme that I was telling you for this meter. But you can kind of, because you have both, you can kind of get an idea of what's going on. I don't really work on stuff that's that much of a voltage difference is going to matter to me. If I take it down to a range that I'm going to work on much more often, I set it to 4.99 volts on the bottom here. This says 4.93, and my fluke says 4.94. So that's, a 10 millivolt difference with my fluke. That could be notched up to probe-ish. Anyway, it actually went up to 4.94, so it's actually the same as my fluke right now. So in the 5-volt range, which is where I'm going to be testing most stuff, it's going to be very, pretty darn accurate. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it having a 60 millivolt difference at a 24 volt output, 25 volt output. That's not a big deal for me. I can always use my fluke to double check. But I know there's some people that are going to see like, hey, this is a total waste of time, and this is a, there's some people that are very, very strict in their measurements like that. And if you're doing some stuff, I'm sure that's really important. But I have not had a project where that really mattered to me that much. So, what else is there to show? I guess not much else. This can be powered off 12 volts, which is kind of awesome, and that's something that you won't get in a standard bench power supply. You also won't get the watt meter. Oh, one thing I should show you all, of course, is that this watt meter can still work with the Wi-Fi, and this is kind of cool. This is a feature that I kept. So this unplugs. There's the USB right there that I glued in. And then I can plug this into a little USB source, and now I can use it over Wi-Fi. And so say this bench supply is, I'm going to store it probably over here, and I need to work on something where I have to, I don't want to turn my head all the time to measure, to look at the voltage. I can just set this wherever I want and check the readout really easily. And it updates really quickly too. You can see as I turn the knob. So this is a great little cool feature that you won't get with a regular benchtop power supply either. So that's another little feature, and the 12 volt input is the other one that kind of makes this stand out. I don't know what I'd use it for exactly. I'm thinking maybe when I work on my car, or if I'm working in my garage on a scooter or something. Even then I'd plug it in though. But I don't know. It's there. It's an option. Maybe I'll use it years from now. And it's cool nonetheless. And lastly, let's see what else we have in here. So to make it run off 12 volts, I went ahead and just used 2 diodes. So there's one from this power supply, controlling the direction of current, and one from your input. So I was thinking of doing a MOSFET switching thing, but this is just way easier. and should work totally fine. 12 to 16 volt input will power that, and there's really not much else to it. Pretty simple hack. I found the case, I found the power supply, I found most of the switches and fuses. These screw terminal blocks are from some boards that I ordered, those Class D amplifiers you can get from China that are really sweet and have high wattage speaker outputs. I don't use these for that, so I just took them off and have been saving them. So those were essentially free. You know, you can find a power switch anywhere. And this watt meter costs about 22 bucks, but I'm still using it as a watt meter, so I didn't have to sacrifice it for this project because it became part of the project and still functions as a watt meter. So not much else to say. It works pretty well, and I guess I could wire up a, let's go ahead and wire up a little LED light just for shits and gigs, as my friends used to say. And if you're going to do this, I do recommend looking into some of your other options. There are some really cool DIY power supply, adjustable power supply options out there. There are these things called DRS 0515, I think is one of the models, where it looks like this, but it has a little knob and you can adjust it, and it takes pretty much any voltage up to 50 volts and then steps it down. And so there's cool stuff out there. I wouldn't recommend this project necessarily unless you want to save a lot of money and, I don't know, really want a watt meter that can pop out like that. But anyway, everything's got its advantages and disadvantages. So there's our visual display of the adjustment, and if I take the current down, it shuts off as well, which is kind of cool. The current limiting function works very well, as does the voltage limiting function. And the power supply that's in here, I think I got it for free. I think I found it, or, you know, you could find them in Goodwill, or even if you buy them online, they're not going to be too much. And while it is a switching power supply, I think it'll do the job just fine. I don't know how well it's going to handle shorts in the output and stuff like that yet, or how it's going to handle power dissipation, which is why I want to put that heatsink on anyway. But you get the idea. It's pretty sweet. I'm happy with it. I have now a bench power supply. I can test stuff effectively and not use a tattoo gun power supply. So yeah, that's it for this mod. Enjoy your hacking and building quality bench components, and I'll catch you all later. This is Sega Sonic Fan, signing out.